I mean, I think a lot of what I've said, I said on the earnings call, or at least I try to say what I think on the earnings call. The overwhelmingly important thing is achieving unsupervised full self-driving. This is really profound, and hopefully a lot of you have gotten the chance to use 12.5 or at least 12.3.6. There's the AI team, and it's a couple hundred. It's not a huge team. It's just a few hundred super talented engineers. But I do want to emphasize that it's obviously way more than me, but it's more than Ashok, it's like tough to recognize like 200 people. But I just do want to emphasize that there's it's actually a little more than 200 people that are really responsible for the full self-driving software side, and then we've got a great chip design team, because you need the chip it's got to run on something. So the Tesla AI chip, hardware 3 and hardware 4, and then upcoming hardware 5, which will probably be in volume production in 26. Yeah, 26. There's really great chip team, and then we've also got a great training cluster team. Like, it's actually very hard to run a lot to build and run a large NVIDIA training cluster takes a lot of skill and a lot of work. Teams cranking 24/7 on building the south extension to the Gigafactory in Austin. And I was actually just talking to the team last night, making good progress for installing the servers. But it's like sometimes people think, oh, you just buy NVIDIA GPUs and plug them in and they start the training run and off you go. This is not the case at all. It's super hard, actually. In fact, one of the tricky things that is kind of interesting with if you've got a large NVIDIA training run, or in any kind of like large training run, the power fluctuations are unlike anything you ever see anywhere else, because the GPUs are all running with extreme precision. It's like a symphony, like this massive symphony with, in the case of the installation in Giga Texas will be 50,000. It's like, imagine 50,000 instruments all moving in symphony, and what that actually causes, it's like actually extremely difficult, like a nightmare electrically, because when the GPUs go up, the power goes up, and the GPUs go down, the power goes down. and this can happen at like 100 millisecond intervals. So it's actually quite a difficult thing electrically.
Sounds like a light show almost.
It's kind of like a light show. It's get these dramatic changes in power draw. And so and when you got 50 megawatts, that can go from 50 megawatts down to 20 megawatts in 100 milliseconds. That's just very unusual. So, and back up again. Anyway, so it's actually quite challenging. So shout out to the Tesla team for that is building and operating the training center. So it's really like quite a few pieces of the puzzle that need to be done. And then we've got to record a lot of data and feed that into the training system. But the net result is that it's really starting to become quite compelling, I think, with 12.5. As I mentioned publicly, we've increased the number of parameters by a factor of 5. One can't simply increase parameters. One does not simply increase parameters. Unless those parameters are useful and done in the right way, it doesn't matter. You actually have to have the parameters be the right. Well, each parameter is like just a number, but the numbers have to be correct. And you can think of what the AI is trying to do is effectively compress reality. So it's trying to say, like, okay, we're taking all this video in, trying to understand reality, compress it down to a few gigabytes, really. Although I think that's steadily expanding, and it'll probably end up being 20 gigabytes soon. But we're trying to compress reality into, I don't know, a few gigabytes is pretty hard. And because the inference computer in the car is much weaker than, say, a GPU in a server center, it's only got like maybe 15 to 20% as much power. So in order to make, if your inference computer is relatively weak, then you have to spend actually more effort on the training side in order to make up for the weak inference computer. But it is working. I think it's doing really well. I think we'll see continued rapid improvements each passing week. I think it's important to note that even if there were no battery breakthroughs at all, I think you could electrify all road transport and all ships could be electrified with even if there was zero improvements in battery technology. This may be an important point to note. Now, there will be improvements in battery technology, but even if there weren't, you could electrify all ground and water transport. For airplanes, you do need some improvement in the energy density, the gravimetric and volumetric energy density. So you've got to you ideally want to have about a 450 to 500 watt-hours per kilogram energy density, which you can get, I think, in some. It's getting there. Like it's with some expensive cells, they're up in that region. Really, most of the R&D effort is in improving the cost per kilowatt hour. So the cost of range, like how do you improve the cost of the battery pack in order to make the cars more affordable? From a range standpoint, I think people are coming to expect a range of roughly 300 miles, I think, as being kind of normal, maybe a little above 300 miles. And that's if you're assuming that you're not climbing a mountain in cold weather. As you add more load, the range will decrease. On the other hand, if you're going down a mountain, your range will increase. I think we're really going to, I think, starting to see like a nominal EPA range of above 300 miles as being kind of the normal standard. And then just figuring out how to build enough battery packs and scale it up. We're making good progress in the Tesla designed cell, which is a design manufacturer cell, which is this is a hard problem. I mean, there are entire companies that's all they do. But the rate of progress is good. But like I said, no major breakthroughs. There's a lot of work just to say like how many gigawatt hours of cells need to be made every year to really transition the world to a sustainable energy economy. It's actually hundreds of gigawatt hours per year, ultimately perhaps thousands. A lot of it will go to stationary storage. So for pairing wind power with stationary battery packs and solar power with stationary battery packs, and just overall improving the efficiency and stability of the grid with the stationary battery packs, that's actually quite a big deal. Yeah, but overall, I feel like things are progressing at a good rate. I mean, you can think of the Tesla cars as essentially robots on four wheels. It's really profound, and I'd recommend just giving demonstrations of the self-driving capability to people. To friends and family and stuff, because if you take a Model 3 or Model Y, I mean, it's a good looking car, but it doesn't look like it has like super intelligence. It looks like it's a good looking electric car, but it doesn't look like it's like, I use the analogy, like, let's say you had a cat and it looks like a normal cat, but actually your cat can talk and jump up and do like a hat and cane dance and do like a musical.
Are you talking about Garfield?
Essentially, like let's say you had a sentient cat that could talk and sing and dance, but people look at the cat on the couch and the cat it just looks like a normal cat, until it jumps up and does a song and dance, and it's like whoa, like, wow, what was that? So that's the thing with the self-driving is that sure, the Model 3 Y, they're good looking, normal looking cars, except ours can basically sing and dance. And it's intelligent and can drive from one place to another. So it's just demonstrating that to people kind of blows their mind. So I'd recommend doing that because that's really key. And then for the Optimus Robot, that's really an extension of what we've learned with the car. So the car is a robot with four wheels, intelligent robot with four wheels, and Optimus is an intelligent robot with arms and legs. In the case of Optimus, we have to design every part of the robot from scratch. All the motors and gears and electronics and sensors all had to be designed from scratch, and also we had to learn how to operate all of these motors and sensors. You really get to learn a lot about how the human body works, and you realize there's a reason why we evolved this way. There's a reason why the muscles that operate your hand are actually located in your forearm. If you look at your sort of hand, it's sort of like it's like a puppet basically. And the puppet strings are in your forearm. There are a small number of muscles that are actually in the hand, but most of the muscles that operate your hand are in your forearm. So with the current version of Optimus, we actually have the actuators in the hand, but with the new version that we're moving to later this year, the actuators are in the forearm and really emulating how a human hand works. There really are no motors and there are no actuators. When I say actuator, an actuator would be like motor plus gearbox plus power electronics and sensors. There are no actuators that you can buy for really any amount of money that work well for a humanoid robot. So we have to go back to physics first principles and design all of the actuators from scratch. So it's a tremendous amount of work, and I think it'd be very difficult for any company that's not extremely good at designing actuators to make an effective humanoid robot. And then it'll have the same like brain as the car. So initially hardware 4 and then hardware 5 in 26. And then just as the car is learning how to navigate reality, it's the same basic process for the humanoid robot. And I think basically everyone's going to want one. So It's like, who wouldn't want, you know, sort of like, there's different ways to think of robots, but like let's say R2D2 and C3PO were real. Like, who would not want R2D2 C3PO? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Like a friendly buddy robot. Now, we need to make sure they stay friendly, of course. That's very important. You know, I think it's kind of like people will get pretty attached to their humanoid robots, just like people, you know, you get attached to C3PO. And yeah, I think everyone's going to pretty much want one. And I think long-term, the cost of the humanoid robot should be less than the cost of a car because it weighs less. There's fewer parts in it. So ultimately, I think, you know, a humanoid robot that is super useful, I think long-term is probably like $20,000 or $25,000. But it depends on what a dollar's worth in the future, you know, inflation and all. But, you know, current year dollars, I think, you know, I can see reaching a price of $25,000 for a humanoid robot that would be really useful. You know, that could like help you take care of kids, walk the dog, go get groceries, like whatever works, you know. So I think everyone's going to want one. So there's 8 billion people on Earth, and I think they're all going to want one. So that's why I think it's probably going to be the biggest thing ever. I mean, initially so we're starting like production design 1 of Optimus, which we'll do some basic stuff in the Tesla factories next year, because we want to iron out a lot of, you know, details. It's just to make sure it's useful, and for the first year or so, it's going to require quite a lot of babysitting from engineering. Hopefully, when we get to 2026, that'll be when we could sort of sell it outside of the company, because and be confident that it'll work reasonably well and respond to voice commands and that kind of thing. And then you'll be able to sort of, I think, customize how the robot looks as well, long term. Because, you know, you can kind of shell or skin the robot however you like. So I think there'll be wide variations in how the robots looks, how the robot looks, and, you know, maybe like some third parties could do cool things, just like there's like cool third-party wraps of the Cybertruck. That's some really creative art, I think. So the Cybertruck's like, even though it ships as kind of like bare stainless steel, it ends up having some of the most interesting art in terms of how it's wrapped, and so it's really quite unique. Actually, I was talking to Pharrell. He was obviously very creative, and I think he has some ideas for, you know, doing a Pharrell version of an Optimus, for example, which would, you know, be pretty cool to have like different artists come up with different versions of Optimus. I think that should be coming out in August. So 12.5 is
2 weeks.
Yeah, it's at some point in the next 2 to 4-ish weeks. It should work. Cybertruck. I mean, I'm not sure the exact timing, because we just have to test it and make sure it works well. 12.5 is where a lot of things come together, where you've got we upgrade the highway stack to be the latest version, so it's you don't have the old highway stack and the new city stack. Having one sort of integrated state-of-the-art stack for highway and city is a big deal. You know, like little things like you can wear sunglasses and still do the hands-off driving, and then having it work on Cybertruck. Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine drove Cybertruck all the way halfway across the country, and he said it was driving him crazy that he could not turn on FSD. Well, I think in terms of what will have the biggest impact in the world, it will be the kind of the Robotaxi, dedicated Robotaxi. Now, of course, all Tesla vehicles can operate it, or will be able to operate as a Robotaxi, pretty much all. So, you know, but yeah, I think the dedicated Robotaxi will have the single biggest effect in the world. The semi-truck, I think, will have a very, very big effect. Roadster is, one of those things that's not like necessary from a utility standpoint, but is super cool. You know, I guess a friend of mine, Peter Thiel, is like, he always says like, why don't we have flying cars? So I think it'll be super cool. Is it change the world? I don't know, but I think like sometimes you just gotta have things that are just cool, because it's just great to have awesome things in the world. So it's kind of cherry on the cake. I think the Roadster demo will be mind-blowing. It might be the most mind-blowing demo of anything ever. I think next year sometime. And that's a joint sort of Tesla SpaceX effort. So it's kind of applying combining rocket engineering with Tesla EV engineering to make something really special. Yeah, and we'll continue to make new products that we haven't talked about at all. There's new things that'll come out. But the really ultra profound thing is full self-driving. Is unsupervised full self-driving. That's like the gigantic thing. And then Optimus having an autonomous, useful humanoid robot is an even bigger thing than full self-driving. But those are the two things that, like, if you were to look back in history from fast forward like 20, 30 years or 50 years even, like what are the things that really were profound. A general solution to unsupervised full self-driving, a humanoid robot that is truly useful. Even 100 years from now, they'll be like, whoa, those are big ones. Well, I can't give it away, you know. You gotta have some. You don't want to give the show away before the show, you know. I think it'll be cool. I think people will be pretty excited. In the actual event itself, how many people will realize how profound it is, what we're going to show? I think some people will understand how profound. Not everyone will, but it will be obvious in hindsight. If you're not driving, you're really effectively sitting in like a tiny lounge. You know, having, say, you know, being entertained with being able to watch movies or play video games or work. It's really, the car just becomes like a tiny mobile lounge. Or you could sleep, you know, whatever you want to do. I mean, you could drink too. I mean, you're not driving, so it's this thing of like, it's like a little mobile lounge. It's not something that you have to focus your attention on driving all the time. So it's a completely different experience. One cool thing I should mention is that would be, I think, interesting down the road is also for Optimus, for people that have lost their limbs. If you take Neuralink, basically being able to control, which the Neuralink version 1 telepathy allows you to control electronic devices. If somebody's lost their arms or legs or whatever the case, and attaching that and combining that with a Neuralink would give them essentially cybernetic limbs. Kind of like Luke Skywalker and Empire Strikes Back, you know, where you get like a robot hand. So I think that could be pretty incredible for people that have lost limbs, being able to have like a cybernetic limb. Anyway, I think that'd be a cool combined effort between Neuralink and Tesla. It's wild how much is happening in the world. I mean, there's stuff happening with SpaceX and Tesla and all the advancements in AI, a lot of advancements in pharma as well. You know, there's a lot of interesting, like, kind of miracle drugs coming along. We're certainly headed for, I think, the most interesting future. We live in the most interesting of times. You know, sometimes it's like easy to sort of, like, I don't know, get down about like some day-to-day event or political stuff or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, we are living in the most interesting time in history. And that's pretty cool. Well, I love retail investors, I have to say. Because, you know, I think retail investors or individual investors are like, they're like making a decision to support the company. And that's super appreciated. You know, like I think we have the highest retail investor percentage of maybe any company, or maybe certainly one of the highest. I think that's really a good thing. You know, like, there's going to be sort of ups and downs in the stock price for, you know, random reasons. I do feel confident that the long-term value of the company will be extremely high. You know, the best analysis I've seen is like Kathy Wood's company, ARK Invest. They've been the most accurate in the past. You know, the value of the company is going to be kind of nutty with unsupervised full self-driving and with Optimus. You know, I sort of wonder ultimately what money will even mean in the future. Robots that, if the cost of goods and services are driven to almost nothing, I think we will, you know, assuming it's a positive future, which I think it probably will be, then we're headed for an age of abundance. You know, I do feel like maybe that like Tesla's kind of in a phase right now, like similar to what NVIDIA was in before NVIDIA stock went bananas. And I have to say, like, NVIDIA deserves the valuation they've got. You know, Jensen and his team have done an amazing job. It really goes to show like the value of any kind of AI, a company that is strong in AI it's just going to be crazy, and it will dwarf the value of companies that do not have, really will be profoundly different. I mean, it's the simple sort of productivity kind of back of the envelope math for cars is that, you know, a typical passenger car is about 10 hours of use a week. It's call it like an hour and a half a day for 7 days, so it's about 10 hours. But if it's autonomous, it could be used 100 hours a week. I'm not sure what the average usage would be, but average usage in autonomous mode might be 50 hours, but certainly it could be used 100 hours of 168 hours a week. So that would be a 10x increase in the productivity of the car, but it costs the same. If you just do the basic math on that, it's like, okay, now you go from like, I don't know, 25% margins to 90% margins. It's insane. And then that, you know, for cars that are owned by customers, then we'd obviously revenue share with the customers, and so the owners of the cars, I think, would earn quite a bit more than like the lease cost or financing cost of the car when it's in autonomous mode. Yeah, but if you just think of asset utilization efficiency, and you go from 10 hours a week of a car to 50 or 100 hours a week, and it's the same car, that's just, it's the biggest explosion in value maybe ever. Unsupervised full self-driving, that looks like it's If it doesn't happen later this year, it seems extremely likely to happen next year. If you just plot the points in the curve of miles between interventions, that number is improving dramatically. Those are really the two whopper things. And then, as I mentioned, for Tesla, also Optimus. The Optimus numbers are like, they're like so mind-blowing that you're like, is this real? Because I actually think the market for humanoid robots is in excess of 10 billion units, like more than the number of humans. Because people will each want one, and then there'll be others that are involved in industry and stuff. You know, if they do sell even at volume for $20,000, that's 20 trillion. So it's like, I mean, this is bananas numbers, you know. Yeah, $20,000 times 10 billion, 20 trillion, 200 trillion. A lot. It's like bananas numbers. So that's why I wonder, what does money even mean at that point, you know? Like I said, they're so profound that they will be recognized, assuming we do them, we have to actually do them, they will be recognized 100 years from now, maybe 1,000 years from now, as fundamental milestones in civilization. That's the level of significance we're talking about here. Should be a hell of a couple of years.